Y'all ready? Y'all ready? The City of Southport Board of Aldermen meeting, November 10th, 2022, is now called to order. Welcome to all of those who are in attendance and those who are watching virtually. And so far, the storm is leaving us alone tonight enough so that we can all attend and be together safely. So I'm grateful for that. Our invocation, Reverend Alderman Lowe Davis is not feeling well. She is not here tonight. She sends her best wishes to all. We will have a moment of silence for Major Burke's father. So our thoughts and prayers with Major Tony Burke, and his family on the passing of his father. If you would please stand for our moment of silence and then our Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would first like to welcome Mayor Emeritus Robert Howard. Thank you for being here with us tonight, sir, and thank you for your service over the years. Our meeting tonight is one of Thanksgiving. And as we look at our agenda, we're thankful for our veterans. And we have a proclamation for them for Veterans Day. We're thankful for our first responders. We have a contract with Brunswick County EMS. We're thankful for our city employees and their dedicated service to our citizens and our city. One way we show our appreciation is a holiday bonus. We're thankful for our city volunteers, the reappointments to the ABC Board, Board of Adjustment. We appreciate all who serve on different city boards. We're thankful for those who speak in public comment. We're thankful for our citizens and for their contributions to our city. Southport Wooden Boat Show was a marvelous event. The Sisters of Southport, they decorated pumpkins and put them around our city. The cookout for first responders at the home of Ginger Harper. We're thankful for these organizations like Downtown Southport Incorporated, our civic clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions, our historical society. We're thankful for the Division of Coastal Management in the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for their assistance to our city, and for the NC Wildlife Commission for their presentation tonight. We're thankful for our interim city manager, whose contract is on the agenda, and I predict it will be unanimous. We're thankful for the new city employees introduced last month, 2 planners, HR director, first responders, HR technician. We're thankful for our department heads. Your service during a time of transition has been exemplary. We're thankful for those who assist in all our board meetings, Madam Clerks, Communications Department, Animal Protection Services, our police. We're thankful for the assistance from Cape Fear Council of Government in our planning department. We're thankful for Congressman Rouser, State Senator Rabin, Representative Charlie Miller. They have made our city a priority, including funding for our waterfront stabilization. We're thankful for Free Press, who cover our city and are with us this evening. We're thankful for this Board of Aldermen, your service, your dedication to our city. Thank you. Thankful overall for everyone and everything that is the blessing of Southport. Our unique neighborhoods all over the city, our parks, our cemeteries, our local businesses and restaurants, our churches, our library, our schools, our gorgeous waterfront and yacht basin, our historic heritage, our family, our neighbors, and our friends. We in Southport are truly blessed. So in that spirit of Thanksgiving, I would like to make a couple of comments before we go into item D, public comment. First of all, Indigo Phase 2, an important topic for our city. And I just want to briefly let you know where we are. As you know, they are zoned R20. That's where we are, R20. They submitted a proposal for rezoning for a planned unit development, PUD. As you know, our position, it was in the Stateport pilot, the headline, on August 17th, 2022. Well, the headline, Mayor, 1,542 units is not acceptable. They heard that. We heard the voice of the people. And for these developments or projects, we look at multiple things: historic preservation, public health and safety, our environment, our wildlife, our forests, the quality of life, the cultural heritage and unique neighborhoods. So what we are looking for is the least impact, but the best results for our citizens in our city. So where they are right now, well, there is no plan right now before us, but it's zoned R20. If they want sewer from the county, which you heard them say they did, when I became mayor, one of the things we did was we instituted a sewer agreement with Brunswick County. There can be no parallel lines. In other words, they can't come in and provide sewer to in our city, and we can't provide sewer services outside the city. Only with our permission can they come in. And if we give permission for them to come in, then that development, whichever one it is, has to be annexed into the city. Has to be annexed. So, and I know you've heard them say that if there's, and they've said it enough that you almost believe it, but they've said over and over again that at R20, they would not annex into the city, that they would get their sewer from the county. Well, with our sewer agreement, they cannot do that. So whatever development, doesn't matter the name of it or where it is, if they want sewer from the county and they're not in the city and not getting it from us, we have to give the county permission to give it to them, and they have to annex into the city. So either way, this development will be annexed into the city. So the city hired a development agreement attorney to negotiate this. If there are 20, we have to explain to them why they have to annex, because if they want sewer, they have to annex into the city. And then we have to negotiate a number of units. So this board is very proactive and is looking at all options. And so they have, at our meeting on the 8th with the attorney, which the board is allowed to do, to consult with their attorney, they have given that attorney direction on what's best for our city and our citizens. This is months and months of a process. And what I would like to do in order for our citizens to better understand that process and where we are, we have 2 new planners. So we will have a town hall meeting with those planners, and they will give a presentation of where we are, so you know exactly where we are, what the options are. And so everyone will be informed. And there will be no vote, there's nothing like that anytime soon, because, like I say, there's nothing on the table right now. It's zoned R20, and that's where we are. So we'll let the process go forward. Let's let the planners do their job. Let's let the attorneys do their job. So that's where we are right now. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope I didn't take Madam Clerk more than 5 minutes. And the second thing I will say briefly is that in terms of our yacht basin, you heard a presentation. There's no action on this at this time. We would have a workshop in 2023 to discuss those options. The yacht basin is driven by the private sector. The public sector provides electricity, sewer, roads, that type thing for them to succeed. So this is a private-public, partnership. So that's where we are with that. So, Madam Clerk, if there's anyone to speak in public comment.
The first name is Frank Lay.
That would be me.
Welcome, sir. Make sure the microphone is on. It's that middle button. State your name and your address and your topic.
My name is Frank Lay, L-A-I. I live at 788 Indigo Village Court here in Southport. I am the president of the Indigo Plantation Homeowners Association. And I've been in Indigo for 20-some years. I've been in and around Southport for many more than that. I had a home on Oak Island. Then if you wanted to buy groceries or anything, you might want to buy pizza, you came into Southport. My wife's had some family here in Southport. And I've seen Southport grow from a small fishing village, and now we've been found. And we are a destination, which is good and it's bad. We know that there's a lot of growth going on. Mr. Mayor, you've addressed a great deal of it right here. And what I'd like to ask is, as things go forward, that you continue to keep us informed as to what's going on, listen to what the citizens have to say, and continue to just, work forward. The people on this board here, on the Board of Aldermen, you've got your plate so full that you need some sideboards built on to keep all the stuff on it. And at the rate you're being paid, that's probably about 55 cents an hour. So we appreciate whatever you're doing for us. So thank you for your time. As we go forward, take our concerns into consideration, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well said, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Bev Hammond.
I'm Bev Hammond. I live at 506 West Owens, and I'm here to talk just for a few minutes about an issue which we recently encountered with right-of-way plantings and the city ordinance. And to be honest, this is all new to us because we've never encountered this situation before. We received a letter at our address at 609 Clarendon, which is a house that we're in the process of renovating, saying that a few of the plantings were in the public right-of-way. So we talked with city staff people and quickly learned that it's a violation of the city ordinance to have these plantings there, which were there before. All we did was replace plants that were already in that footprint. And so we started looking around and saying, well, as you guys all probably know, a lot of people downtown are in violation of this ordinance. And that got us to thinking, how did we get chosen? And just a little bit of background on that. We are renovating a house at 609 Clarendon, which is where these plantings are. And the gentleman who used to live there and a relative of his owned the house, sold it to us. We've efforted for years now to help out this gentleman. We've given him odd jobs, bought him a car so he could obtain and hold a job, helped his family find housing when the aunt went to sell this one. And ironically, he chose to take that car that we got him and destroy the landscaping we just did. And he went to the city and said, hey, I don't want those plants there. So city did what they were supposed to do. They went out and they took a look at it, which all absolutely legitimate, totally understandable. But that's kind of how we got to where we are and how we're learning about the process. Our first thought was, well, maybe this is a violation because it's impeding emergency vehicles or utilities. We checked with everybody. We checked with BEMC, we checked with the emergency personnel, no issues there, nobody had a problem with it. So then we pulled out the ordinance just to take a look at it, and it's super, super concrete, basically saying you cannot put a wall, fence, gate, brick, stone, wood, rock, vegetation, or anything above the horizontal plane of the existing ground in the right-of-way. And, I think that I would hope that you would all agree that you look around at any area downtown and virtually all the houses are in violation of that. And I have very mixed feelings about that personally because I think that's part of the charm of Southport is having those plantings and the beds and the pretty landscaping that everybody's done. So, from what we've been able to learn, there's no really clear-cut directive to city staff on how to enforce this ordinance. And so there's no uniformity, and it felt very arbitrary that we were getting this violation and told to take out these 5 skinny little protocarpus. And it's through no fault of the city personnel. I think that there's issues with that ordinance in how it's written, and that perhaps it would, behoove us to take a step back and to look at how it's written and to maybe tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more enforceable and reasonable. So I do have a letter that I passed out to each of you that kind of details this a little bit in a more granular fashion. And I gave you a couple pictures before and after of the property we renovated. We really respectfully ask that you withdraw this violation for us because we've really taken an extremely blighted property that by all accounts most people thought was a tear down and invested considerable effort in trying to restore it and increase its value to the city. And I think that we've accomplished that. And so we were taken aback by this little stumbling block. And in summation, I think that the current ordinance is enforced randomly, and it would really behoove the city to revisit the ordinance definition so that it's more enforceable and is across all neighborhoods, all people. I would like to note too that every city staff person that I dealt with on this issue was super helpful and informative. It would just really help them out, I think, to have a more clear-cut and straightforward process that allows for them to, in a sense, police the ordinance. We replaced these plantings as part of a renovation. This is not new to the footprint. These things were there for decades, and all of a sudden it's not okay to have them there. So I think that's a question mark for us. We're curious too, how many other people are in this position? I mean, you've got, I don't know how many houses that are in this situation, but how many of them have been issued violations, or are we just, one of a minority? So we would like to know get some information on that, I believe. And I really feel that personally that any violations that are out there should really be tabled and let things sit as they are until such time that we're able to address that ordinance and really make it more reasonable and enforceable by tweaking it a bit. So for us, our goal is not to create havoc or to point out others for violations. And we did send to some of the city staff when we were going back and forth talking about this. We just walked around and took pictures of a few new houses that they've got paver driveways and plants up to the edge of the road, and not a word is said to any of them. And some of these are our immediate neighbors. So it's very random how this is policed. So our goal isn't to create any havoc. Our goal really is to encourage the city to revisit the ordinance and to tweak it. So it makes sense. And you know, for us, this is not really about moving some plants. It's about the principle that we shouldn't be picking and choosing which residents, like us, are being asked to uphold an ordinance that others are given a hall pass for, essentially. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this and how we as a city can make this a better ordinance that might be more equitable for everybody.
Thank you. Very good comments. And the city manager and I were talking about this issue literally this past week. I received a number of phone calls about the right-of-way, and the city staff is working on this, and we'll have a presentation in December concerning this ordinance and the right-of-ways. So thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk.
Karen Reif.
Hello, my name is Karen R. Reif, and I am at 5980 Dutchman Creek Road. And I thank you all, Mr. Mayor, Interim City Manager, and Board of Aldermen for all that you do. And Mr. Mayor, for your update on the Project Indigo. I am part of the team of No High Density Southport. I'll put that right out there. I would like to say that the goal of No High Density Southport was to raise awareness of this project because there was so much confusion as to where it stood. So we also wanted to hear from the citizens what their thoughts were. They might be totally different from what we had thought they were going to be. So we did a survey, and we thought high density would put a strain on the current infrastructure, the environment and quality of life, which Mayor Hayden, you just mentioned, and to clarify the facts to date. We gathered the voice of the citizens on Project Indigo and presented November 3rd, that was last Thursday, and we would like to address a comment made by one of the aldermen, which was shared to us on our Facebook page, our group. The quote was, "As far as last night's meeting, the organizers unfortunately failed to properly organize the event in coordination with the city, and the Board of Aldermen would have violated state open meeting laws by attending. But here are our facts. On October 15th, the invitation was sent out to the November 3rd to all the aldermen and the mayor. As this was not a city sponsored event, we figured there were probably rules and guidelines that you all had to follow in order to be able to attend. So one of our team spoke directly to the city clerk. And she informed us that if more than 3 came, including the other city boards, one would have to leave as to not having more than 3 attend. We told her we would inform her if more responded so that we could have it posted on the city website in accordance with open laws. We assumed you were all aware of that meeting rule. One of you told us it would not be appropriate to attend. One said they weren't sure whether they would attend. One said they would attend, and then one came without letting us know. So as far as we did not violate that rule. We followed exactly as we were directed. So we also had a PowerPoint, which we've emailed to all of you, but in case you'd like to have paper in hand, we only printed 3 because we're all about saving the trees, so y'all need to share that. And it also includes our contact information if you have any questions, or as we work in partnership to work our way through this project, we want it all to be amicable. We're trying to stay very professional and listen to everybody's opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the voice of the citizens and the work that y'all have done with this. And the more that we discuss and the more information we get out, the better outcome we will have. And thank you for the printed copy. I'll leave mine at City Hall as well so others can look at it. And so thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk.
Agnes McGreeve, excuse me.
Hello, my name is Agnès McGeever. I live on Spycrush Trail in Southport. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Aldermen and Alderwoman, thank you for letting me speak. I am also part of the No High Density Southport group. You're probably getting tired of hearing that. Thank you for preemptively talking about Project Indigo. That's great to hear. I just have some facts, we love facts, and a question. On August 10, Mayor, you were quoted as saying, "It is time to hear from all of you, aldermen, city officials, citizens." On September 8, at the board meeting, the board was going to vote on Project Indigo until the partners withdrew the application. That's an old story. Then the partners asked the city to negotiate. Negotiation tactic 101, he who speaks first loses. We probably all know that. Another fact, on November 5th, the same alderman that was mentioned by the previous speaker responded to the same person, "There have been and will continue to be many opportunities for the public to address the board and provide input on Indigo Phase 2. As far as we know, the survey you have in your hands, 530 respondents, over 300 comments, is the only organized, concerted effort to gather the voice of the citizens on Project Indigo. We're not referring to a sales presentation, a glossy presentation from the partners. We're not talking about people like me having 5 minutes at the mic at the town hall. We are not talking about the workshops where no comments were allowed. We are talking about organized, concerted effort to gather people's input. As the saying goes, too big to fail, we believe that Project Indigo is too beyond to pass in a vacuum. So my questions, Mr. Mayor, what have been the many opportunities to the public to provide input? What type of organized citizen input gathering happened between August 10 and September 8 to inform the board's vote? And what type of organized, concerted effort will you make before a decision is made? And hearing today, it sounds like, hopefully, don't you think the Project Indigo, the scale and scope, demands a more robust public outreach?
Yeah, thank you for your comments. We will look at each one of those questions in terms of. We have had, I think, very good participation at all the meetings, whether it's a Board of Aldermen meeting, workshop, town hall. So there has been opportunities, and there was no 5-minute limit. We had to do a 5-minute limit because the meetings were getting too long and that type thing. We receive emails, we answer them, we talk to people when they call us. The thing that I want to do, as I mentioned earlier, is that I want to get more information to you about what R20 means, what a PUD means, what is the process that we're going through. And it is a process, whether it's the Haven on Burrington or Indigo Phase 2. Mm-hmm. And it's a process, and we have new planners now. Southport is so busy, we have 2 planners. We had 1, remember, now we have 2. So, and this is a month and month and month long process. And the letters to the editor, we read. We read all the articles. Think of all the articles that have been in the pilot, all that information that has gotten out about the meetings, and the comments of the people are in there. People at home are watching you right now, so you're getting that information out also. And so we have not tried to limit in any way information from getting out. And also, let's not forget, the planning board looked at this and spent a good bit of time, and staff spent a good bit of time on this and made recommendations. And their recommendation was followed, and the voice of the people has been heard. There is no Indigo Phase 2 project in front of the city right now. They withdrew it. So we hear you, and as I said, we can't do, if we could do R0, if I'd won the lottery, we'd have R0. I'd have bought that land. We'd all not be here tonight. Maybe we'd be at Oliver's or somewhere, you know, celebrating. But regardless, what's the best for that land is it not be developed. That is the best use of that land. I call it R0. And don't think that I haven't been working on ways to do that. I just haven't found a buyer yet. But we're looking. So anytime anyone wants to call me or any of the aldermen, we are available. Your meeting, I was not there, and it was not purposeful that I was not there, but I was unable to attend. And it does put the board in an awkward position going to a meeting like that en masse if we don't notice it. And so that was the problem. But the fact that you sent it out and people have seen it and we've looked at it and will continue to, this is a partnership for our city. This is the biggest project since 1792. And it is a partnership. And your voice will be heard. And it's in increments. Incrementally, all the comments are recorded. People can go back and look at them. Like I say, in the newspaper, we have all these wonderful stories about Indigo in terms of the process and where it's going and that type of thing. And like I said, 1,542 units was not acceptable. It just isn't. And we want to keep our town as quaint as possible to keep that village-type atmosphere. And so that's our goal. But until, like I say, right now, it's zoned R20, but they can't go to the county and get sewer without being annexed in. And that's kind of where we are. No. And they have and there's a number that we would have to negotiate. Right now, there's nothing on the table, nothing they've submitted.
If I may, so first of all, I want to say the planning board did an outstanding job.
Yes,
outstanding. They did. When you say R20, do you talk about just the ETJ or also Indigo that's within the city?
Well, now you're getting, that's in the city, so, and we don't know exactly what that is zoned. When they put their proposal in, all of y'all remember the map, is that they encompassed it as one unit. So they put the in the city and the ETJ together and put together their proposal. So to your question, the only thing that they have zoned is the R20 section. The other section is really not zoned right now.
Thank you for clarifying. So it's good to hear. That's why we're asking for two-way communication. And it's good to hear that it's on your radar, so to speak. What is the immediate next step for Project Indigo? So you had the meeting on Tuesday. What is the immediate next step? Can you tell us?
The next step, and I wouldn't call it immediate because we're very methodical. The next step is the board has given direction to our development attorney, Mr. Terrell, and he will contact his counterpart for the developer and explain in part what I have just said. This is where we are, and the city, I think you've heard me say it, it's a, I know the board has, it's a, we have a blank canvas. The city controls what's there. Truly, if the board doesn't vote for PUD, they don't like it, they don't have to vote for it, and it's R20.
That's great to hear. It's not what we read in the papers, that's what it's great to hear,
Yeah,
that the
no,
city
so
is in
that's where
control.
we are right now.
Thank
It's in
you.
negotiation.
Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Maria Swenson,
Welcome, Miss Maria.
Hi, how are you all? Is this on? Hi, my name is Maria Swenson. I live at 107 North Atlantic Avenue in Southport. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the board, for all your service and allowing public comment. And Mr. Mayor, even though you said that the op basin proposal wasn't going to be on the agenda or discussed, it was still a ways away, I do have something to say. Excuse me. I want to explain something in case none of you know this. The temporary, notice the word temporary, change of direction on the streets down by the op basin was actually my idea. And that happened because our governor opened us up on Memorial Day weekend. And I knew that everybody would want to go to the op basin and eat. So I got with the owner of Frying Pan and a couple other businesses, and I said, what do you think? Can we do it one way temporary so that people can have the distance that they needed during the COVID process? The police chief agreed automatically, and gratefully the mayor did as well. But it was temporary. It was a temporary request, never meant to be permanent. And I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody says, well, you asked for it. Yeah, I did, because I was very concerned about the public health. Myself, my husband, and Mr. Craig Blanks, and several businesses and a city official have requested that the traffic pattern be reversed to the original pattern that it was in that area. And before I begin any comments of this new proposal and study, I would like to ask the Board of Aldermen a few questions. You're not going to get graded. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't even have to nod. But I just want you to think about these questions. How many of you, here's where it gets tricky, y'all, how many of you have resided full-time, permanently, for more than 10 years? No answers. How many have resided permanently in Southport for more than 20 years? How many of you have resided for more than 30 years? As you govern us, I want you to think about those questions. Some of us have been here a little longer and have done things to help the city unrecognized. You have your answers in your head. The op basin study proposal has different stages to improve the op basin and riverfront streets to the marina. The pros: reclaim city right-of-ways. This property would allow a safer use for multiple traffic, i.e. foot, bikes, cars, etc., and also provide for much-needed parking and additional sidewalks on Moore Bay and Caswell Streets. The cons: no discussion on reverting traffic patterns to original design. It can be done if the city claims the right-of-way. Current traffic pattern forces vehicles to travel through salt water during our frequent high tides. I asked the city aldermen and officials how many of you have actually been down there during our high tides for the days that it comes into our streets. How do we get traffic through? Do we force them through the salt water? Not a good idea. Also, with the traffic pattern the way it is now, it increases vehicle traffic on Brunswick Street. Not a good thing, in my humble opinion. This proposal, or this study, has costly and unrealistic options, such as bulb-style bump outs and boardwalks in front of private property, in front of our slips. I don't think there was any regard to the citizen business owners' input of plus 30 years when they did this consideration, and they never even considered reversing the traffic patterns. The yacht basin was reinvented. Those of you who have been here longer than 20 or 30 years will understand exactly what I'm saying. Many years ago by several business owners, without city help, studies, or workshops. Now that this area is thriving, the city steps in to help. But for whom? This proposal appears to be mainly for tourists and visitors, and not in the best interest or the needs of the citizens who live here and own these businesses. I'm going to say this very slowly. Southport is a town of citizens, not tourists and visitors. We ask, we plead, the board to be the leaders we, the people, elected. Elected officials have a sworn duty to listen, have open dialogue, and actually hear the voices of our citizens. Our citizen input is crucial to the long-range governing and development of our hometown. Thank you all for listening. Have a pleasant evening and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and I'm proud to say that I was one of those that was in your establishment with, and I want to send you a note about this, Sue Lee's, Stephanie Falk. Those were sweet times. It were, and I had black hair, so yeah. So thank you for your remarks. Madam Clerk.
Pat Kirkman.
Aldermen, and greetings to you, Ms. Theron. Welcome to your first BOA meeting. I expected to be a minor but consistent voice tonight, and I am. So for the 7th month in a row, I appeal to you, the only 6 people in our population of 4,124 citizens with the power to consider and amend the full operation of the city's cemeteries. And I'll be leaving you with these 2 words: Cemetery Commission.
Thank you. You did have a hard act to follow tonight, Ms. Kirkman, so thank you for hanging in there. Madam Clerk.
Jim Lightbourne.
Welcome, Mr. Lightbourne.
Thank you. My name's Jim Lightbourne. Sharon and I live at 316 West Street here in Southport. And there are 2 articles in this week's Southport Pilot that raised concerns for us. One of the newspaper's articles concerned alderman interactions with the ABC board. In particular, there were some concerns expressed in this article about alderman use of social media. Now, I haven't seen the social media. I don't know if it was appropriate or not. So I'm not really speaking to that. But it did raise a concern about the appropriate use of social media in our community. I read the section on ethics for aldermen's actions and conduct, and saw statements, and those are very extensive in those ethics, and I saw statements that possibly could apply, but nothing explicitly on the use of social media by aldermen. But should there be some guardrails for aldermen use of social media? For example, should aldermen be able to use social media to express their position on issues before the board? Should aldermen be able to post their interpretation of aldermen decisions and discussions? Should aldermen be able to post information and their interpretation of that information on issues before the board? You probably see where this is going. My opinion is that there should be agreed upon guidelines for the aldermen in their use of social media. Aldermen have public monthly meetings where they can state their opinions. They can engage with other aldermen in a robust discussion. Aldermen can summarize information they have at monthly meetings and submit source documents for the record. And these meetings are televised for the public. So I think we have a fairly robust method for individual aldermen, and this is important, individual aldermen to be able to speak directly to each other and to the public. And everyone hears what is said. We know the downsides of social media. Social media can accelerate the spread of misinformation. Social media can create followers who will see these posts as insider information and base their opinions on it, whether the information is correct or not. Social media can contribute to divisiveness, a sense of us against them. We all know this. It's in the world that we live today. Now, I'm not saying Southport has a problem now, but I think it's something we should consider as a potential problem an issue in the future. So I suggest that the board, with the attorney, because I suspect there are legal issues here, would consider possible guidelines for aldermen's use of social media. So that was one article. The other article had to do with indigo. You actually covered most of my comments there. I think one area of confusion, and I assume this will be addressed later on, is this negotiation that goes on between city leaders and staff and the developers. I couldn't find any part of that in the UDO, so I don't know what guidelines there are for that, what import that has in the approval process, where it stands in that. If decisions are made, then it's automatically approved, that sort of thing. So that's just an open question. It's when this is addressed, I think it's important we understand a little bit better about what those negotiations mean. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the question about the board does not negotiate with the developers. We've hired an attorney, and that's a standard procedure when a development has been turned down, and one that's as large as this, so you would have an attorney to help with the negotiated process. And we don't meet secretly with anyone on their side or anything like that. It's we meet with our attorney for the attorney-client privilege and that type thing, but other than that, there is no type meeting. If you'd like to expand on that, counsel, on his question.
You had asked. I apologize for that. You had first, generally on the social media issue, we are very limited as a board.
Not the social media. I'll take care of that one. I want you to talk about the development attorney.
Right.
Yes.
I'm not the development attorney, by the way, and I have nothing really to do with that.
He is not Tom Terrell.
I'm not Tom Terrell.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't have any input into the Indigo issues. For full disclosure, I have represented Limited in the past, still do with respect to employment matters, and I think it's probably a better idea if I stay out of this, even though technically it's not limited. But on just the process for this, there are a lot of things in the UDO, a lot of issues that come before the board that the board is not allowed to have discussions or to learn about outside of the meetings. And I think one, I was actually looking on my phone a minute ago about R20, what's allowed and what's not allowed in R20, because just to give you an example, there are a host of uses that are allowed as a special use in the R20 zoning district. So in those things, even though we would have a public hearing, it's not about people's opinion. The hearing isn't to determine whether people think it's a good idea or a bad idea or how the public feels about it. Those are evidentiary hearings, just like if you were in court arguing about whether someone violated the law by running a red light or something like that. You're there to hear evidence, and the board members have to be completely impartial about those things. So to give you an example of that November 3rd meeting that we were talking about earlier, one of the hazards that you run into when board members go and attend a meeting that's organized either for or against a project like that is that if a special use by that developer, by that property owner comes up in front of the board later, there's a good chance that the property owner is going to say, hey, Councilman, Alderman X, you've already publicly expressed that you're opposed to X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to recuse yourself from this because North Carolina law requires that. Can you imagine going in front of a judge for a civil matter where the judge had been to a meeting 2 months earlier and expressed that they were opposed to one of the parties in it? I mean, it's clearly violating your rights. Nobody would stand for that. Well, property owners have the same protections in these types of situations. For some of the things that they're asking for, they are absolutely entitled to a completely disinterested board that comes into it with an open mind. On the other hand, there are some things, like zoning. Zoning's a good example of things that are legislative in nature. All of you can think of situations where you've called elected officials or have heard about elected officials. Hey, I think the law ought to be changed and we ought to allow X or Y or Z. The speed limit ought to be lower in a particular area of town. Any of those types of things. Perfectly permissible to contact your legislators, and these guys are legislators, these aldermen, outside the context of a regular meeting and say, here's what my opinion is on this. I'm a citizen. I think you shouldn't zone this way, or I think you should zone this way. So there are different types of decisions that are going to come in front of this board, land use decisions, and some of them they're allowed to take outside input on, some of them they're not. And they try very hard. I know, I get calls all the time about this. Hey, what can we do here? What can we talk to people about, and what can't we talk to? So that they're taking their ethical obligations seriously, and that's what they're supposed to do. If you come in front of them, and the short time that I've been here, I've seen several special use permits come here, or people asking about being annexed in or things like that, and those folks are entitled to a variance hearing. They're entitled to a fair and unbiased, completely unbiased board. And if someone is standing up and leading the charge either for or against a project, for or against something, they are not unbiased, and they don't need to be taking part in the decision on it. So those are kind of the constraints that we're dealing with. And I'm sorry I gave you the long-winded explanation for that, but, you know, we can either do it the right way, or we can get stuck in court where we have to pay our attorney's fees, their attorney's fees, and a judge gives them whatever permit they want, which is the absolute worst way to do it. You know, you try to treat people fairly up front, and by fairly, I mean impartially, even if it's unpopular. And many of the decisions are unpopular. People don't always like what their neighbors can do with their property. I just looked at R20 a minute ago. For example, they could put group homes out there and have recovering alcoholics, drug users, whatever. Nothing that anybody could do about it. You could come up and complain at the meeting all you wanted to. I assume most of you would be opposed to that live near it anyway. I know I would. Personally, if I lived there, but doesn't matter what you personally think about it, because R20 allows that and North Carolina law allows it. So we need to keep that in mind on these things. Don't let you know, a quest for perfection in a situation like this stop you from coming up with a good compromise. And I hope Tom Terrell, I believe he's honestly trying to do that. These folks are listening to you. I know because I'm hearing it. I don't live here in town, but I do hear it from them, what they're hearing from you, and I hear it every time I come to a meeting. So, thanks.
Thank you. In terms of the social media, we have been looking at that, and there should be a social media policy draft on our agenda in December. But we also will have a workshop for the board. It'll be an open workshop. Of course, citizens can come, and we'll have someone from the UNC School of Government to help us with this. This is an important topic. When Mayor Howard was mayor, I don't think you had a lot of social media posts at the time, sir. Somebody drop a note off at your door or something, or call you. So it's a totally a different world now in that regard. So thank you. Madam Clerk.
There's no one else signed up, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone here that wanted to speak that did not sign up and would like to speak? We're on a roll. Good? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for this good dialogue, good public comment tonight, so thank you. Item E, this is a presentation on the possible use of the Sunny Point property. This is a presentation only. The city doesn't have to do anything with this land. Okay, these are just proposals that have come to the city. We didn't go out and advertise saying we had 440 plus acres who would like to do what with it. So I will call on the NC Wildlife Resources Commission, Casey Cook and Chelsea Ward. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here.
Sir. Something wrong? Okay. Good evening. My name is Chesley Ward. I'm a game land management biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And on behalf of the Wildlife Commission and the other staff that worked on this project, thank you for having us here tonight. You've got a beautiful city. I'm going to jump right into this so we stay within the time slot. Let me start by saying that land acquisition is a very important tool for conservation for agencies like the Wildlife Resources Commission or other entities such as land trusts. The two polygons on this map right here are parcels of land that the Wildlife Commission has purchased over the past several years because of the rare wildlife on those properties and the habitats. They lie within what is called the White Springs Natural Heritage Natural Area. It has high ecological significance. The Southport Tract, which is south of there and adjacent to Matsu, of the three parcels, the two that we already own and the third one down there in the Southport Tract has the highest ecological significance because it has the most and the best of those rare habitats. So back in 2020, discussions between the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission and the city of Southport began. And the idea of a potential acquisition of buying the 441 acres from the city came about. And with that, our staff went back and we conducted what we call a Phase 1 land investigation report. It's a standard procedure that we all do anytime that we pursue a property. That land investigation report went before our Land Acquisition Committee, which is a subcommittee within the Wildlife Commission, and we got approval from them. It was endorsed by them, which pretty much gave us permission to pursue funding to acquire that property, which we did. We applied for a North Carolina Land and Water Fund grant. We submitted that application in February of 2021, and in December of 2021, we received that award and went under contract for that partial funding of this tract. So at this point, that's where we are in the process. And I want to talk to you about, if we do continue this partnership with the city of Southport, what is next? Again, if we continue this partnership, the next thing we'll do is order an appraisal. We are bound to pay appraisal value for a property. It typically takes a couple of months for that to come back because we'll put it out for bid, and whoever is awarded the bid, that appraiser has a certain amount of time to conduct his appraisal and come back to us. The North Carolina State Property Office would reach out to the city of Southport and make an offer based off of that appraisal. And if the city accepts, the Wildlife Commission will pursue the remaining funds. And we would also do a Phase 2 document that would go, again, back to our Land Acquisition Committee. It's just a stewardship plan, is all it is. Like, what would our stewardship cost be to manage that property if we did acquire it? And at that time, the State Property Office and the city would sign a letter of intent. This is not a binding document at all. It's just an authorized letter saying that we all agree to move forward in this process based off of this appraised value. There's no contractual agreement whatsoever. It's just a letter of intent. So from then, again, like I said, when we get approval, we would secure funds. We would work towards securing funds of the property. And once we do that, we have a funding plan. That project will go before the North Carolina Council of State, which, if they approve, the State Property Office and the city can sign an option agreement. Again, it's not contractual, it's not binding at all. It's just an option agreement to, again, move forward. We would hire an attorney to do a title search, and then that would be reviewed by our Attorney General's office. Like I say, when we pursue those other funding sources, we hear back from our grant applications, we will secure funds, and then we would close. And this time frame from start to finish typically takes about 1.5 years. But we're already into that process because we have already raised partial funding for this through that North Carolina Land and Water Fund grant. So I'm going to turn it over to Casey Cook, who's going to talk to you guys about the conservation importance of this property.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am Casey Cook. I'm a land conservation biologist with the commission. I'm going to try to, I don't know where I point this to get it to, oh, I'm going backwards. Okay, here we go. All righty, there we go. I'm going to talk about the conservation importance of the Southport-owned tract next to Matsu. The tract is essential habitat for disappearing wildlife. So why are we doing this conservation work? Why is the Wildlife Commission so interested? We have 1,000 vertebrate species of wildlife in our state. That's 1,000 species that have a backbone. Over 1/3 of those are in some form of mostly significant decline in population. Some we just don't know enough about, but most of them are in significant decline. So we are really starting to pay attention to these rare wildlife species because we're starting to lose them. These species inhabit priority habitats. We have 8 of the 21 most endangered ecosystems in the United States in North Carolina. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And the longleaf pine forest ecosystem where we are is one of the most endangered. So this map here shows the remaining habitat for longleaf pine forest amphibians and reptiles, and those are the priority wildlife that are of most concern to us that are on that tract. Everything in red is not protected habitat, and everything in blue is protected habitat. You can see there's only 5% of the longleaf pine forest that remains. The gray area in that map is the former range of the longleaf pine forest, which was 90 million acres, and now only 5% remains. And the City of Southport tract has numerous ponds on the property that support these rare amphibian and reptile priority species. So these ponds and the uplands that surround them, healthy examples of those are extremely rare. They're even more rare than the longleaf pine forest ecosystem. And so these are some of the species that are of concern that are on the tract. And as you know, these habitats disappear, these species go with them. Oh, I did want to say one thing here, but I'll just go on. The amphibians and reptiles on this tract, they spend most of the year underground, burrowed in the soil to escape the extreme temperatures and to forage. One of the most rare amphibians we have on the tract is the gopher frog. That's what they do when you pick them up. They look terrified every time, every single time. These slides are from Jeff Hall, who is the wildlife biologist that has worked with all of these amazing partners specifically on the gopher frog, and you'll see why in a minute. So we work with all of these agencies to conserve the gopher frog. Gopher frogs live in longleaf pine upland habitat for most of the year. Fire is an extremely important component of the habitat management. It's a historic, natural process that just happens on the land, and most wildlife actually need fire to occur, and protects us from wildfire when we do prescribed burning. Fire maintains an open herbaceous landscape that maintains and creates stump holes in the ground, which are key refugia for gopher frogs. And they'll travel up to 2 miles to the same stump hole every single year. So they need fire to maintain that. Gopher frog, this is a gopher frog wetland. When it's full of water, they breed and lay eggs in the winter, as do many of those species that you saw on that previous slide, which makes them very unique. This is the same pond in the summer when it's dry. It's extremely important for these ponds to dry and have this grassy substrate. The ponds are free of fish, and a lot of the amphibians lay their eggs on the grass. So these ponds actually need to burn in the summer all the way through. So this is why we're so worried about gopher frogs. Historically, there were 32 known sites for this frog in North Carolina, and now there are only 7 populations known. And this is a close-up of those 7 populations. As you can see, I have this backwards, that's why. The Southport tract is one of those 7 populations. So, you'll get more information on why that's so important in a minute. But the Southport Matsu area is one of those 7 populations. The most important pond for the gopher frog in this entire population, including all of Matsu, all the ponds on Matsu, all the ponds on the other tracts that the commission owns, and the tracts on the Southport pond, of all of those, this is the most important pond. It's the largest natural pond on the Southport tract. And that's because this is the pond where most, if not, where most of the breeding happened in the last 6 years. In some of those years, they didn't breed anywhere else. And so if something happens to that pond, the entire population of that frog could disappear, is what we're worried about, or concerned about. So the tract is also highest ranking conservation importance by the Natural Heritage Program. It has 4 classified rare natural communities, 9 rare plant species. It's also likely habitat for an additional 19 other priority amphibian and reptile species. and the tract is adjacent to known habitat for 3 priority bird species that are in significant decline, which are likely to inhabit the tract in the near future: painted bunting, red-cockaded woodpecker, and Bachman sparrow. Oh, the last slide isn't showing up. Oh, well, I'll just leave it there. Our last slide is meant to say that we're just here wanting to confirm the interest of the town of Southport in pursuing, the potential acquisition of the tract by the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. We would need that kind of, confirmation that you're still interested in selling to us in order to move forward and get that appraisal done. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions, I don't know if you have time for that, but we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I have, I think it's 2 quick questions. If you were to have this property, what do you think you'd be doing with it?
So Chesley is our management biologist, so he'll answer that.
So I'm a game land management biologist, and my primary responsibility is to manage our game lands. So the property would come into our game lands program. The 2 parcels that you saw on the original map are already in our game lands program. It will be open to hunting and trapping during the open hunting and trapping seasons, but everything is archery only. There's no weapons, no firearms allowed on it for manner of take, because it does join up to Matsu, but it will be open to the public as well. It's just not exclusive to hunting and trapping. It's open to the public 365 days a year, but the public be mindful that there is hunting that occurs during the open hunting seasons. So that's how the public would be allowed to use the property, but we would manage it in a way with periodic fire. Like Casey told you, these landscapes, these ecosystems need periodic fire. They evolved with lightning strikes and Native Americans putting fire on the landscape for thousands and thousands of years. And what we do with our prescribed burn program is mimicking those natural processes to benefit these rare species and other species as well. But to answer your question, it would come into our game lands program, would be open to public hunting and other public outdoor recreational activities, and we would manage it primarily with fire.
And have you seen the easement requirements from Matsu on that land?
No, sir. Casey, have you?
I just suggest that you go and look at that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Yes, and from what I've read, is also a blast zone, so it's sort of a tricky property at times, I would think. All right, our next presentation, but thank you for that excellent presentation. I learned a lot, and that's one of the things I like about public services, that we learn so much, and I appreciate the fragility of our environment and what y'all are doing to protect it. I think it's just marvelous in all the programs that you do. The next presenter would be the Pilote Corporation, Attorney Raymond DiGiuseppe.
Good evening again, and thank you again for the 3rd time for having us here. Really appreciate it. And this is definitely intended to be a discussion item, not a lecture or anything. So obviously questions are welcome from anyone here. Do we have the, just click it? Okay. Okay. Which way? Going the wrong way, okay. So down is forward, interestingly. I think I'm going the right way. Okay. So I think we've already had a lot of information come out, obviously, in the prior meetings, and I don't want to rehash things that have already been said multiple times, but I created another slide which gave some more detail, and this includes the project description itself for the berm repair that Matsu itself created, explaining what the process involves as far as the earth being disturbed and rebuilding the berms, and obviously the need to bring in a lot of dirt in order to make this happen. And this is some more pictures everyone has seen of the area, and we can talk about that more specifically as people may have questions. I just thought, in light of the Wildlife Commission's presentation here, we would just go to this slide, because this was prepared before we even knew the commission was going to be here. And thank you again for coming, because it was very informative. The intention clearly with Pelote is to and maintain a willingness to work with the Wildlife Commission to the extent that the city's interested in dedicating or allocating some portion of it for conservation. You know, again, we've said that a small area of this whole 440 acres is all that would be needed in order to try to balance the interest here. And it is really interest balancing. I mean, some earth somewhere in some environment is going to be radically disturbed for purposes of supplying and undertaking this critical project for the military. It's going to come from somewhere, and that area will have some environmental implications, obviously. And this is the most contiguously or closest parcel that exists out there for purposes of making the supply. And as stated here, you know, as little to 50 to 100 acres. In fact, I was talking to the president today of the company. He said we could even cut it down to 25 acres. And as that last paragraph states there, that we'd be happy to work with the Wildlife Commission or any other conservation commission or society that the city might want to dedicate a portion of it to, just to ensure that we're not interfering with the conservation purposes that you may have. So, and that clearly is the case. The idea is to provide the supplies that are necessary, that are going to come from somewhere, and to help the community in the sense of avoiding the large trucks coming in from long distances. All of the work would be done in an internal manner and only accessing by way of the Sunny Point Road, which is, this would be the only way in order to make that happen. Again, it could be a limited area, and it can be done via a lease. I know there's going to be some discussion about the manner in which the city can dispose properly of its property, and one of those, according to the statutes, is leasing up to 10 years. And that's certainly something that they've said before they'd be willing to do if there's a concern about conveying away the property as a permanent action. And again, in some sort of cooperative or collaborative effort with the commission, if there's some way to reach some understanding about the areas that are most sensitive and most concerned for purposes of preservation and conservation, that could be balanced with the interest and value the city can get from having this project be supplied in a way that keeps the trucks off the road and avoids that damage and cost that would come from the outside transportation. And to clarify further what the Pelote's intention here is, it would be all 5 phases of the program. They'd like to be helpful in rebuilding the berms, but it would only use that parcel if it had the rights to it for purposes of supplying the Matsu project. There was some initial consideration of perhaps taking the dirt elsewhere for other local projects, because there's a lot of dirt that's needed in this area right now, like the 211 expansion and the BSL dam repair. But for purposes of this parcel, they've committed to the idea that any dirt that's excavated from there would be used only for this internal supply process as to the berms for Matsu. So, I don't know if Mr.
Thank you.
This is the Vice President of the company.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah, the Board of Aldermen and Mayor, thank you very much for allowing us time again, and we really appreciate that. My name is Lloyd Ludlow, Vice President of the Pelote Corporation. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for a great presentation from the Wildlife Commission. We are really interested in working with you guys. We take it very seriously. We have a lot of history working with conservationists and to the environmental standards that are needed for these kind of projects. We know that we're actually creating more ponds for you, so it may help in the future to be able to work alongside you as opposed against any, anything like that. It's our intention to work very closely with you guys. So, thank you.
Just some additional detail. I printed out what, or included in this slide, what the Matsu specs say about how the dirt would be transported in. And those are the routes that it says the dirt can come in off of and would come in off of, absent some sort of arrangement like this, where you'd be able to have access to an adjacent parcel that would avoid any travel on public roads. And, part of what we were seeking last time and what the planning board had recommended, and I understand it's not going forward at this time, but what we were trying to get would be access to the site so that we could look at things like that are of concern and be able to present an environmental study and survey that shows how this could be done in a way that would avoid the problems with causing damage or violating environmental regulations. And the reality is that if the report shows that it can't be done in a way that's feasible and in compliance with all of the applicable regulations, then it wouldn't go forward. But the way we would be able to show that one way or another is to access the site for those purposes. So that's sort of where we are with things, and would just continue to say that we'd like to work with the city and the planning board and the wildlife commission and the Matsu representatives to try to come up with some sort of arrangement where everyone can mutually benefit from it with the smallest amount of land that can be impacted, and hopefully everyone can benefit from this. And there's the possibility of areas that are excavated for reforestation of those sections to the extent that trees have to come down. So, but again, happy to take questions or to try to answer questions further that people may have. This is the expert on berm repair and excavation, not myself, but.
Why are you here in addition to Matsu? Or maybe why is Matsu here in addition to you?
I don't know the answer to that question, but happy to communicate with them. I think they reached out to the city.
Well, Rich, maybe you want to.
Are you done, sir? Because I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing else I would mention is something that you mentioned a moment ago about the restrictions that Matsu has, and to the extent that the Wildlife Commission has its plans, they would definitely need to take account for that. It's a very restrictive setup that our kind of activity wouldn't have any impact on, but it's very restrictive. I think it's even no more than 25 people on the land at any given time, and all sorts of activities are limited and prohibited. So it's, the ability to use it in some functional way as for recreational purposes is quite restrictive. But I'm sure that the Matsu individuals can speak to that further. I'm pretty much done.
Does anyone have any questions for either the wildlife or for Pelote Corporation? Yes, ma'am. If you, yes, please.
Oh, no.
Yeah, ma'am, you should probably come up to the microphone so everyone can hear. I know it's a distance, but take your time.
You want me to identify myself too? My name is Deborah Aldridge. I live in the area. For memory collection, we cite some history for people who've lived here a long time. I've lived in the area 40 years. You must be acquainted with Martin Marietta. Very well. I'm very well aware of Martin Marietta. My question to you, because I see nothing has changed in the format of that property or that land, period. Studies have been done, reports have been done from back when Martin Marietta was here. You're asking to go on site for 441 acres to do core samples, is my understanding, correct?
We want to do core samples yet to see if the material is suitable for.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, that's what your presentation is here tonight, trying to stick with format. Trying to stick with that format. You obviously have a plan. How much of that 441 acres are you planning to pursue for core samples? What encompasses core samples? Is it water? Does it encompass just the soil, the sand, the clay? You see where I'm coming from. So I would like to know that. In the past, I personally was involved in the hiring of a hydrologist. I see that nothing has changed again in this property, other than the fact that the city now owns this property. And I think the city has a vested interest in it because of this area. And more so, of course, the people in the surrounding neighborhoods and so forth. And the traffic. So what I heard tonight also was that you were going to restrict the travel in and out through Matsu's Road. So that led me to believe that there will be no trucks, no heavy-duty trucks, no sand gravel trucks, no big cup trucks, like you say, ever going or using those highways nearby, Bethel Road or down that way, to access that property. Is that correct?
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you for your questions, and let's let them answer about the
Well, I didn't know. I realized
samples.
their presentation. I
Yeah.
just want to put that out.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's more to come, I'm sure, later. But if you will go ahead and answer those to the public here, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much
All right.
for your questions. We really appreciate their great questions, and we have covered these in the past with the board and members of the public before, but I'll just go over. The first part of the question was, what does the boring of the samples entail? So, first of all, we were looking at the total 440 acres. We only really need around about 25 to 50, and what we're doing is we want to do some exploration on bore sampling in that area to see if the material is suitable for this project going forward in the 5 phases that it has coming up in the next few years. Bore sampling is very simple. We use a national company called Terracon. They are actually the same company that wrote the specifications for Matsu, and they will come in, and all they'll do is they'll bore a 4-inch hole into the soil up to a depth predetermined by ourselves, usually around about 10 to 15 feet, nowhere near the aquifer, making sure that we don't puncture anything or go into the aquifer. They are then regrouted, so there is no damage to the property. It's like it was never there. And so that kind of covers, we take the sample, we check the sample for different types of soils, different types of viscosity, different types of hydrology, and making sure that those soils meet the specifications for the project that we're looking to actually supply this material for. The second part is that we know the location is very good for keeping all the heavy trucks off the road, because 15 years ago, the Pelote Corporation were the corporation that actually built these berms in place as a major subcontractor on the project. We use the same pits that we're talking about now. We know that that material at that time, 15 years ago, made the specifications, so we're expecting it to be able to not change and be able to use it again. We know the area, and we're sympathetic to the area and to the people that live there. So I hope that answers your question.
Let me save you that. I just want to say this, okay? And I appreciate y'all, and I know that theoretically you're here tonight to get permission to do these samples and all that, but I also know that any disturbance of land has consequence. I'm just going to start there. And I actually spoke with the president of the North Carolina Herpetological Reptiles and Amphibians Society, okay? And understanding that any land disturbing activities, there are risks. And Mr. Martin, his name is Mike Martin, indicated that the success of this unique habitat on this property is in part reliant on maintaining the hydrology and the elements of the deeper soil. The potential effects on isolated wetlands from drilling 4-inch holes 10 feet deep cannot really be assessed without firsthand monitoring and understanding what happens on other sites in that general vicinity, what's going on in other sites. And the hydrology of these wetlands depends on adjacent insulating impregnable soils, and if this impregnable layer is ruptured, it could cause adjacent wetlands to drain differently, changing the wetland hydrology and interactions with dependent species, causing it effectively to drain at a different rate, given it different characteristics, and perhaps affecting the success of larval amphibians, which I know you're a scientist, so I know you know all this. But what I would like to say is that, as stated in the letter from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, there is a high concentration of wildlife species of greatest conservation need or priority species as identified by the North Carolina Wildlife Action Plan that occur on that tract. They've already invested in 2 other tracts, and this tract is more robust than those tracts. The species of greatest conservation need, priority species, are defined as species that are currently rare or have been designated as at risk of extinction. So for me, I would venture to say that there's no way I could support drilling and soil mining on that land. I know that you have already identified other sources for the soil 8 miles away and 42 miles, I think you said, away.
That's right, yeah.
And so I would ask that you go there and get your soil, because I do not believe that is the highest purpose of this land. And it's already been mined to a certain extent. It has already suffered that before. So I think in the interest of our values and conservation, that's where I am.
Thank you. Yeah, these are just presentations. There's
I know, but
no
I
vote.
just
No,
say that.
Glad you got it
Because I
out.
want
That's
y'all
good.
to be able to move on with your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, this land has been there for a while and is doing well. I think we'll, leave it like that for right now. I agree with you in the conservation aspect of it. So all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentations. I don't know if anyone from, as they say, Matsu is here. And then, since no one is,
I'm
then
sorry, do you want me to explain what the information he gave to me, sir?
If you would like, yeah, that'd be fine if you do have something.
So what has happened is that because I'm the representative to Matsu, the only reason I got involved in this in the first place, I've been trying to hand this off to the city staff because that's their real job to do that. I got a call this afternoon from Matsu to follow up. I had asked for the easement, and so far the city has been able to find the easement, their version of it. And I wanted to see the easement so that I could understand what restrictions might be put on anybody who might want to buy the property. I thought that was important before we got too far down the road. Anyways, that conversation led the gentleman I was talking to, who's supposed to be the speaker here, to say that he was not coming tonight because his headquarters people haven't given them the permission to go forward with seeking negotiations with Outport to buy it, and he wanted to come to the December meeting. I explained to him that, once again, he'd have to go through the city clerk on that, yada, yada, but they just didn't show up because they didn't show up. I was under the impression, bad on me, that information had also been passed to the city manager, and that was not passed to the city manager or to the city clerk, and I inquired about that when I walked in the door. So that's where we are on that whole thing.
Do you know why they want it?
I do not know why they want it. I inquired about other parcels that were on the same crescent. Why wouldn't they want that piece of property? And they said no, specifically they wanted this piece of property, and that it probably require all of us to go to Matsu and sign non-disclosure forms to have them explain that to us.
If you're going to speak, sir, you need to come to the microphone. And,
sorry, I'm not trying to take up too much more of your time. Just because of Alderman Alt's question about the restrictions. The first meeting that we had, the first BOA meeting we had, the handout that I circulated included a copy of those restrictions. So, and I actually have another copy here. I don't mind leaving them with you because I have other copies. So,
If you would just leave it with the city manager.
sure.
I'm sorry, are you asking about the restrictive easement?
Yes, ma'am.
I sent a copy of that to the full board once I received it from the representative from Matsu, and I think it was included in your packet as well. If not, I can send it again.
Okay, then when we talked earlier, I must have not have spoken clearly to.
I couldn't find the MOU.
Oh, okay.
But I do have
But I
the
asked for that
easement.
as well, yes, thank you, I'm sorry, ma'am.
okay, thank you. And the last item is the general statute disposal of government-owned property. That's in there for you to read. I don't think we need it at this time, but it's certainly in there, and the board needs to think about this, city staff needs to think about this, and we have plenty of time.
I have a question about that.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I would like to ask the city manager, when I'm reading it, it appears to me that we could do a private sale negotiation if it was to a nonprofit or a trust for conservation and or preservation. I just want to make sure that the state qualifies as a trust. I would assume that it would.
I would assume that also, but I'd have to double check to make sure.
But if you could get that information, I would like to know that.
I can go ahead and tell you a quicker answer than that. There are other statutes that allow you to dispose of property for no consideration or for consideration to other governmental agencies. So we don't even have to follow these if we're talking about either another municipality or the state. So 168-266 wouldn't come into play in that right. Your hands are completely untied when it comes to dealing with the state.
Okay, well, that's awesome. And then, let me find my notes, sorry. I wanted to also send a question, back to the planning board, because I think when we sent the Pelote proposal to them, they were looking at it more as the specific proposal, and I think what we would like to ask them, because of what's required in our UDO, is that since the city is no longer building our own sewer plant, is it in the best interest of our communities to sell this tract with its limitations and consider the acquisition of land that would be better serve the future needs of the city's public works department. So I would like to send that. That's really the heart of the matter for the planning board to consider and come back to us. I don't know how much if I should be, because we did a lot of research. Alderman Carroll and I had the opportunity to visit the land with our public works director, Tom Stanley. Mr. Stanley showed us the land from Bethel Road side and from the Sunny Point side. And I can tell you, until yesterday, I had a very different impression of the land, and that we should consider selling the land. Or initially, I thought we should consider selling them. This is in 2020 when we had the discussion. It's in the minutes where we discussed about working with wildlife then. And we talked about possibly retaining 20 acres on the Bethel Road side for debris fields and public works kinds of things. However, Mr. Stanley agreed the topography of the land in that area is not conducive to this type of use. It's a land, a series of peaks and valleys, and it's prone to flooding. This land, and as we talked about, this land has use restraints because of the proximity to Sunny Point and the blast zone. And this land was really originally purchased for a future city-owned sewer plant. And since that time, we're joining the county system. And with the existing limitations on this land, it seems more appropriate for us to sell the land and then purchase land that's a better fit for the future needs of the Public Works Department. And so that was sort of the conclusion we had in that conversation.
No. The other thing we might add to the record is that I believe this was purchased with the Sewer Enterprise Fund, and therefore that money has to be used for that purpose.
Just so you know, that money's been paid back, so actually, we just own it free and clear now. So it was paid back. The grant money that we got was paid out of the water and sewer back to them, to the state, I believe it was. So, you know, but what came out of water and sewer is correct.
So it would have to go back into the enterprise fund.
Any kind of funds you would get off of this would have to go back into the enterprise fund, correct?
And to follow up on that, can we use water and sewer enterprise funds to pay for a new public works facility, since
I would have to
water and sewer uses a lot of it?
I would have to take a hard look at how the enterprise fund was established, and I can get back to you on that.
Can we agree on sending that question back to the planning board?
There's no motion or action. This was all presentation. Very good discussion. My advice, the land has been there. Let it stay there. We have time to make a decision on this. Okay, the land is not going anywhere, and let's listen and do our research, have more discussion, that type thing. There's no rush to sell or to dig or to do holes or anything like that. So conservation is key, absolutely, and I agree with that. And that's what we're doing right now. I mean, nobody is harming that land right now. I know it's not being managed and burned. Maybe we can look into some land management for that tract without having to sell it or lease it or anything like that. So, because it's protected right now, because nobody can be on it. So that's my advice. These were good presentations, and I think it's we'll move on if there are no further questions or discussion on it.
I have a question, and this is going to be a stupid question. I apologize in advance. But if you have been in talk with the NC Wildlife since 2020, as I read tonight, again, I know nothing about the topic, why is the city entertaining another deal if you've been in talk since 2020?
Yeah, thank you for your question, and we'll get back to you with an answer. Thank you. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, make sure that question is noted, and if someone from planning will get back to her. So thank you. All right. We will move on to the, I'm going to read the ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Anyone with a conflict? Okay, great. Thank you. Item F is approval of the agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. Is there, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Alderman Allen, a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Agenda approved. Approval of the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have minutes from our special meeting, September 29th. We have two sets of minutes, closed session. That was concerning the city manager, interim city manager. and Board of Aldermen minutes from our October 13th meeting. Something that's important to all of us and close to my heart is the contract with the Brunswick County EMS. This is for our Southport EMS to continue to function. We have a yearly contract with them and for mutual aid. A budget amendment, carryover purchase order. These are purchases that need to be made, and that money's carried over for this year to be used. And then item 7, city employees holiday bonus, well-deserved bonus. So I'll entertain a motion. Alderman Allen, is there a second? Mr. Lombardi, any further discussion on the consent agenda? Okay. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Item H, special recognition. This is a proclamation for Veterans Day, and it's my honor to read this. All municipalities are very proud of their veterans, and Southport no less so. We remember in particular our World War II veterans who are no longer here with us, like Mr. Ozen's son Carrier and his colleagues from that generation. I first would like to start with a letter to the editor. This gentleman said it well, and I would just like to read it, then I'll read the proclamation. On Friday, November 11th, Veterans Day, the Southport Lions Club will place American flags in honor of veterans who have served in the military. This holiday was originally called Armistice Day in honor of the signing of the World War I, the signing of the ending of all hostilities of World War I on November 11th, 1918. Congress passed the original legislation in 1938. Since World War I did not end all wars, Congress needed to include other veterans. In 1954, Congress acted, and November 11th became Veterans Day, including all those who had served their country. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the order honoring all veterans. Then Congress moved Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October, giving the federal employees a long weekend. President Gerald Ford in 1975 made November 11 of each year Veterans Day. There's a ceremony at Arlington Cemetery each year. The national anthem is played, after which the president places a wreath in the tomb of the unknown soldier, and it concludes with taps. It is a fitting ceremony for our veterans and to those who are never found. Please bow your heads for a short prayer at 11 a.m. this Friday to honor these heroes who served with honor and the many who never came home. Ed Bogusky, Chairman of the Southport Flag Committee, Lions Club. Mr. Bogusky, I think, wrote a beautiful letter. He's a former alderman, and I wanted to express his sentiments at our meeting tonight. And also, not only at 11 a.m. tomorrow, but the city of Southport has their Veterans Day ceremony on Friday, November 11th at 2 p.m. at the Southport Fire Station. The speaker will be Colonel Paul Fisher. If there are any veterans with us, would you please stand and join me at the podium? We salute your service. Whereas the freedom we enjoy as Americans have been purchased and maintained at a high price throughout history, and whereas since the establishment of the original 13 states, Americans have been willing to fight and die to preserve their individual rights as guaranteed in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and whereas we owe a great debt to those who have served in defense of this nation, and whereas throughout the generations, their sacrifices have preserved our unique form of government dedicated to human rights and respect for the individual. And whereas for many that sacrifice ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty established as an example for all oppressed persons of the world. Whereas in honor of these dedicated men and women, we pledge continued defense of our nation so that their sacrifice will stand before the entire world as a tribute to the spirit and determination of people dedicated to the principles of freedom and democracy. Now, therefore, I, Joseph P. Hayden, M.D., Mayor of the City of Southport, do hereby call upon the citizenry of the City of Southport to participate, to observe the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month with expressions of gratitude to all veterans known to them, and to further extend this gratitude to the families of deceased veterans, and to solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, on the foreign shores, to preserve our heritage of freedom. Let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. Dated this 10th day of November, 2022. Thank you again for your service, and I believe that we had, if my memory serves me, we have 3 times that were up there for serving our country, so thank you. On our agenda, item I-1, and that is this is a wonderful moment for me. I'm honored to be able to be involved in the appointment of ABC board member. As you know, the board had nominated Mr. William Davis to continue on that board. He's been the chair for 8 years. He's been on that board 10 years, and so we honor him as his work with the city, and he's also a veteran. So I will entertain a motion in terms of nominating Mr. William Davis to be reappointed on the ABC board. Okay. It was a tie. Robert Carroll and Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, the second. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Item 2, we have the software for human resources, and this is something to help our HR department in terms of hiring and that type thing. So I'll call on our interim city manager, Bonnie Theron.
Yes, as all of you know, we do have a new HR person, Patty Fortuna, and she is a one-person HR department. You've never had an HR department. This woman's got a lot in front of her that she's got to accomplish, that's for sure. But one of the things is there's no technology in that department whatsoever. When I first came the first week, she came to me, she said, please, I really need something to help me process things. We are doing things so backwards and so manually right now. Like we're inputting, say, payroll things, 3 different people, staff people's time, 3 different ways. This is how we get mistakes made. So she told me she had looked into this NeoGov software, which I've heard of, and highly recommended it as something we should really take a look at. She had talked to them. They were willing, if approved in November, that they were willing to give us a very good discount on this. So she could not be with us tonight. She had a family commitment. But Walker Holgreen is with us, Mr. Mayor, tonight from NeoGov. If you would like him to do a quick overview presentation so that at least you know what this product can do for us. But I would highly recommend we get this going. It'll take about 4 to 6 weeks to get it installed.
Okay.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
And Mr. Walker hails from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. So it's a pleasure to be here on the beach. It's a great place. It's snowing. There's about a foot of snow at my front door right now, so happy to be here. Let me just get to the presentation really quickly. So I'm Walker Holgreen. I'm one of the account executives here at NeoGov. So I came from the great state of Utah. That's where we're located out of, our sales office. I've had the pleasure of working with Patty and Bonnie, and it's been an absolute pleasure being in your town for the past 2 or 3 days, getting to know everybody. So again, I appreciate the hospitality. And if anyone asks me where to move, I'll tell them South Carolina, not Southport, North Carolina. That being said, NeoGov, just to give you a little introduction on what NeoGov is, we are HR built specifically for the public sector. So we don't work with, private sector agencies at all. We understand there's compliance and different things that you guys have to abide by, and so we've created a software specifically for the public sector. We were established in 2000, and we initially started as governmentjobs.com, which is the #1 public sector job board. Like I said, we're focused on on government and higher ed. So we have a vertical as well that focuses in NeoGov. We serve agencies anywhere from 30 full-time employees all the way up to 150,000 full-time employees. So there's a wide range of agencies that we service. Here actually in the state of North Carolina, being one of my territories, we actually have over 120 agencies that are currently using NeoGov. Just to kind of give you an idea of the market that we are in and the market leader. So like I said, we have 20 years of public sector data. There's over 37 million job seekers that use governmentjobs.com, Insight, our applicant tracking system, multiple different things. We've processed over 125 million applications. We've helped hire 2.5 million people. We've onboarded over 60,000 employees. We've done over 250,000 evaluations. 2 million courses delivered, and over $300 billion processed in payroll. So what we do, our motto at NeoGov, and I'm proud to say this, is we serve the people who serve the people. So obviously the city of Southport and everyone, has a daunting task a lot of times to do, a lot of things, especially in HR. So we want to make their jobs easier, especially Patty being a department of one. She reached out to me, expressed concern. I said, hey, we'll try to figure something out for you guys. So NeoGov automates everything HR and mitigates issues with recruiting, onboarding, evaluations, trainings, and payroll. So right now, I'm just going to focus on recruit module because that's kind of our main focus tonight. But as you guys know, we have a manage module, which is HRAS, payroll, time and attendance, different things like that. Comply, which is our compliance module, which has policy management as well as document management system, and a develop module, which is performance evaluations and an LMS system. So why does the city of Southport need NeoGov? First and foremost, we want to streamline the recruitment and hiring and onboarding process. So right now, if you go onto the city website, you have to download an application, you have to fill it out, you have to either snail mail it in, take it directly in, and it's a long process for you guys. It's a long process for Patty as well, having to sort through all those applications. We want to speed up the hiring process and make it easier and more professional experience for applicants to apply. So as applicants come to apply, they'll see a very professional City of Southport customized career page, which is super nice. They can come in, and from the get-go, they're going to understand, hey, this is a very professional city. This is someplace that I would like to work. We want to eliminate manual procedures when onboarding new employees. So as mentioned, pushing all of this different information after you've onboarded employees into an HRIS system, payroll, it's daunting, and then there's room for error, room for mistake. And so, if you make a mistake in pushing all that information over and doing manual entry, employees aren't gonna get paid and people are gonna be upset. And then lastly, HR department of one employee. Again, huge task to have to onboard new employees, hire, everything like that. So this is gonna automate that process for her. So we do report every year called the Job Seeker Report, and this is data that we've gathered. And so what we've seen is the current job market, as we understand, it's a tough market, especially for public sector agencies. And we've seen a decrease of about 21% in applicants. And so using our software, one, we want to speed up the process because the hire in the public sector takes about 122 days. So it's a very, very long methodical process. So using NeoGov, we can speed that process up, but also through governmentjobs.com find more qualified applicants for those positions. So this is governmentjobs.com, looks a little bit similar like this. You know, the number one reason we recommend governmentjobs.com is because it is already for the public sector focus. So people who are looking or are familiar with public sector jobs are going to be coming to governmentjobs.com to find these positions that are available. And it's mobile friendly. We've seen that there's been at least, 82%, especially with the younger population, I'm part of it, 82% of people applying for jobs are using their mobile device. They no longer go onto a computer, and so being mobile friendly is a huge advantage. So why Insight and Career Pages? Career Pages is where your applicants are going to come in. Insight is the applicant tracking system. So one, we want a modern recruitment process, and we want to establish your image as an employee of choice with a branded online application process. We want to provide candidates with a convenient self-service option to schedule interviews and take care of all your recruiting tasks on the go. This being a cloud-based software, if you guys are bouncing around or need information on Jiffy, you can access all that information. So I use the city of Greenville as an example. This is taken directly from their career pages. This is what theirs looks like. It's going to be customized. Southport looks exactly like this, and then there's going to be the jobs that are available. They can come in, they can click, adult football, indoor soccer official, and then they're able to see a job description, very professional, and they're able to upload their resume directly through there. That's going to auto-populate all those things, and then there can be more specific questions and specific application process and procedures that you guys want to go through. So, and this is wrapping up here, why onboard as well? We want to reduce new hire housekeeping. So before the employee ever even starts their first day, they're going to be assigned tasks to complete. So that first day, they're not filling out a 20-page packet. Who loves filling out a 20-page packet with insurance information that you need to look over, that you need to go over with your spouse? This gives them the opportunity to look that over and make it a more professional way of doing things. And then that way on their first day, they can start their job and get everything that they need to complete. We also want to establish a sense of excitement by welcoming new hires with a portal that features custom content. So looking at this right here, there's going to be a checklist, and all this is going to be customized content that you guys can upload, that you guys can put on there that they need to fill out. You can have a welcome to the team. They're going to have goals and see everything they need to complete. There's 30, 60, 90-day checkups, all these different types of things you can do that customize through here. They can also check their job duties if they forget, because sometimes they forget and need a reminder. And then City of Sunnydale mission statement. Obviously, you guys can put a mission statement there. And so that is kind of the proposed plan that we have. It's a great benefit for the city, especially poor Patty, who has to do everything and go through everything. But any questions from anybody that I may be able to answer?
Is this just the one module, or are we getting a whole suite for her?
Basically, the ones that he's outlined, there's lots of other modules. Basically, the ones that he's kind of outlined are the ones we're going to be able to get, but there's tons of modules. We'll be back with more, but Patty being one person, we need to just get these basics done, and then we'll go from there.
And you're good, you found a budget, you found the budget for it?
Well, basically there's no money budgeted for this, but you see in the packet, it's asking. God, I keep forgetting. There is no money budgeted for this, but what we've asked, and Melanie's told me, and I agree, split it between enterprise funds and the general fund, because it's going to affect all the staff, and there is enough in there to take it, to pay for the first year.
And ongoing, I know every year is there a license fee, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now we've done a 3-year agreement. We have everything locked into a 3-year agreement. After the 3-year agreement, you can reevaluate if you want to add or drop things. But yeah, right now it's on a 3-year agreement with those 3 products. And then you can add products anytime that you'd like as well.
Any further questions? Well,
yes, sir.
Well, you have to get to the microphone.
I'm Jeannie Brown Bush, and I just have a quick question. Are you supplying a GUI interface for the city to coordinate their recruiting efforts, different than what the Southport City page already has? I'm not sure. And what's the repository for all of this information?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, it's a cloud-based software, so all your information is saved in the cloud. Short and sweet, saved in the cloud. It's accessible at any time from any computer. You don't have to, it's not something that we upload onto your computer system. As far as, revamping the recruiting process for the city, yeah, that would be part of it. Try to make it a more streamlined process, make it more accessible, and make you more noticed for applicants who are looking for these types of positions, especially in the city of Southport.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Okay.
Do you need a motion from us?
Entertain a motion. Yes, that's the next step.
Thank you.
Robert Carroll, are you making the motion?
Who would like
You
to
were
make a
leaning up.
motion to?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to purchase this program.
Purchase the NeoGov program.
Yeah,
Yes,
correct.
for
Thank you.
HR.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I apologize. If you could include in your motion to authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
And authorize the city manager to sign a contract with this organization.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Lombardi. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Very good. Very good presentation. Thank you. And make sure you go back home. That's all I'll say, right? I'm just teasing. Just teasing, big man. Come on, bring your family. We got Indigo Phase 2. You can buy a place. You've already seen it, right? All right. All right, Alderman Carroll. All right. Next item on our agenda is the interim city manager contract. You've seen the contract. We've talked about the contract. Basically, it's similar to the city manager's contract in terms of the salary. And our city attorneys looked at it, and our interim manager is willing to stay under that contract. So I'll, she's having second thoughts.
After 2 weeks, I don't know about that now.
I'll entertain a motion to for the contract for the interim city manager.
So moved.
Had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you and welcome. It's a 3 to 6 month contract. She may leave after 3 regardless. I don't know. Hope not. But we're so happy you're here. Item 4. Search for our city manager. It is time to start looking for a city manager, and our interim city manager has agreed to help us with that, so I'll call on her.
I was talking to the mayor. I think we need to really start this ASAP because the holidays, don't make me laugh, because of the holidays coming up, if we don't get an ad out, people are not even going to be looking, and it's really important that we at least post the ad and get that going so that we can get resumes in, and then starting in January, that you would then have an opportunity to start interviews and all that. What I've done in the past, and I told you I would help you with this, is to have a workshop with all of you to try to set what would you like to see in a new city manager and a permanent city manager. What are those qualities? What are the issues you want them to tackle? Those types of things. And I would also highly recommend, which I would like to do the same thing for the department heads, because they are the ones who also will be having interactions with this person. So typically you want to get inputs from both bodies, from the elected and also from the staff members themselves. And then I could then work with our HR director to put together almost like a sales brochure kind of thing that we could then get to those who are interested in the position. And meanwhile, I would then be able to work with whatever all of you want to do. Sometimes it's the entire board, or sometimes it's a subcommittee. That's up to you guys on how you want to move forward with this. But I think the biggest thing right now is, if we want to get this going, is authorize the search to start. Do you want it to be a national search? Because that's going to be a different thing than a statewide search. And it's a lot more expensive, I must tell you that too. But I will say that to find a manager nowadays is not easy. And the reason being, people are not going into this field, and they are not a lot of people that are out there applying for these jobs. So if it were up to me, but this is up to you, and I know you want people with North Carolina local experience. If you want a real professional, I would highly recommend you're going to go national, and let's see what's out there. And but that, again, it's up to you. And the reason it costs more is not only would you be advertising like on the International City Manager site, which costs a little bit more money, but if you were typically, if you bring in people for an actual interview, then usually you pay for costs for them to come in here. But again, that's going to be up to you. And then after that, like I said, we could do the workshop. So there is no money budgeted, but we feel that there would be enough monies that we could at least start the search, and then I could have the workshop and we could figure things out too. So I guess the question for me right now is, if you feel comfortable, is it national or more local? Would help me a lot.
Any recommendations from the board?
I didn't mean to just be the one to jump in on it, but I mean, to me, yeah, the ideal situation would be to have somebody who, has been working in North Carolina, because we have our own set of laws and statutes and all that good stuff. And equally, or more important, I think, to me, is somebody who has ideally coastal development, coastal experience, FEMA reimbursement experience, emergency preparedness experience, emergency response experience, and that type of thing. So, I don't know that we necessarily need a national search, but I would. And I don't know if is it possible to have like a regional search or something that sort of splits the difference, I guess. I mean, I'm struggling to think of somebody who's a city manager in Montana coming here and dealing with the unique situations and issues that we have. So.
I mean, yes, you could do it that way, and trust me, people from other states will check out state websites, especially if they're thinking of coming to this area. So it's not like you may not lose candidates, but yeah, you could definitely have an opportunity for somebody in Florida. They may not have the North Carolina, but they certainly would have the coastal management and this year the emergency management experience. So you could, but again, I mean, it's just something I wanted to throw out as an option.
Wouldn't any advertisement state coastal management? I mean, wouldn't that be one of the qualifications needed?
You could, if that's what you wanted. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what would serve us well.
Maybe you said this. When do you anticipate the workshop?
Well, that's all up to all of you, but it would help if I could do it sometime in December, but obviously before the big holidays.
And in advance of that, could you maybe put together some salary comparisons?
Yeah, Patty's already been working on that for me, so I'll have those all together too.
So it seems like regional, definitely North Carolina, someone that has some emergency experience in terms of hurricanes, development experience, that type thing. And maybe one of the prerequisites is that they purchase a home from Robert Carroll before we hire them. That way we know they'll stay. I mean, just kidding, sir. That's right. Please strike that from the record. Thank you, Madam Clerk. But definitely we want someone that wants to move to Southport, wants to live in Southport, and be a part of our community, and has some experience in the issues that we face.
Mr. Mayor, could you give a greater clarity to the term regional? Are we talking about like Virginia, South Carolina, or just along the coastline of North Carolina?
I would think, the coastal experience, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Florida, if we had a manager in that area. Yeah.
And I think that's very good, yes.
Yes. Okay. Do we need Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to get this started? I'll be glad to ask for one.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
If you just give some direction, I think she can.
I'm
Okay.
good.
All
I
right.
got it.
You're good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. Appreciate that. Item 6, selection of an engineering firm for the USDA project. And I'll turn it over to our interim city manager. I apologize. I was afraid I was going to miss 6, and I missed 5 because 6 was added on. Y'all just not fair. Anyway, appointment, and I apologize for this immensely, Alderman Lombardi, appointment of the Board of Adjustment, because we are so proud of our volunteers on these city boards. So, Alderman Lombardi.
Okay, 2 applicants were interviewed for the Board of Adjustment for one full-time city position. After the interviews, we would like Holly Lemons. Holly Lemons was selected to fill the position. He has served as chairman for the last year, and before that served as vice chairman for many years, and is an asset to the committee. I make a motion to appoint Holly Lemons to a 3-year term.
Motion by Mr. Lombardi and second by Alderman Carroll. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And now item 6, the selection of an engineering firm for the USDA project. Ms. Theron.
Yes, as all of you are aware about the USDA sewer rehab, we finally went out for a request for qualifications for this. We had our grant writer, Emily Miller, along with our Public Works person, Tom Stanley, and Dory, our city clerk, take a look at them and review them, and they're here to make a recommendation that that you select, I should say, Wooten Engineering to complete this project. So I'm gonna, if you have questions, because I am so new, I think it's probably better that you talk to either Tom for the technical things, Tom, and then Dory. So.
Any questions for Mr. Stanley or Madam Clerk from the board?
Dorothy, could you refresh my memory? Is it Wooten that we had the rewrite of the last grant? Thank you, that's all I needed.
Any further discussions? Questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved to appoint Wooten as our engineering firm for this.
For the
Or
USDA
select.
rehab, okay. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Ahead of time, Mr. Lombardi and Alderman Carroll. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of Wooten Engineering?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you.
And I just want to, since our interim city manager's new and speaking with the HR person, we did budget this year to hire our own engineer, and I don't think that's ever been pursued, so I just wanted to throw that out there to you. That would be separate from this, but I mean a staff engineer.
Thank you. Item J, Manager's Report.
Yeah, sure, I can be able to address that very quickly because I was made aware of that early on. And there really is not enough money to hire a really good full-time engineer. But I have some thoughts about hiring someone on a part-time basis that at least we could kind of get a feel, is this going to help us, is it not? What could this person do for us? So I'm going to kind of move forward perhaps with that and at least get somebody on board. Problem is I got to find someplace to put the person, you know, so, but we'll figure that one out. So I'll keep you posted on that. I know I've had a lot of questions on the audit. It was supposed to be on at the end of October, but it will be done by mid-December. Melanie, the auditor, has agreed that it will be achieved by then. Let's see, development. Oh, I'm working next week on getting the project list. Oh, I can't wait to get this, of all the projects you have going on, along with who's in charge and how much money and what the deadlines are and all that. So I'll be able to share that with you hopefully within a few weeks. And lastly, I've become aware in the short time I've been here that we have a lot of files all over this city and they're in all kinds of locations. So I did authorize staff members today to start working on this. We got to do something with the thought that if we can whittle these files down or file them or get rid of them if we can under the, you know, Retention Act, that eventually during next budget I'm going to come to you and ask to start digitizing this stuff. This is crazy, you know, and it's kind of scary, but so I did want to know that. And I certainly have appreciated the way I've been welcomed here. For a small town, you certainly have a lot going on. So I look forward to working with everybody in the short time I'm here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That was a good report, and we're very happy to have you here, and we welcome you. Item K, committee reports. I'll start. Alderman Allen. Alderman Carroll.
The HPC has our first meeting on the 18th of November, so pretty excited about that. The State Historic Preservation Office is going to come down and give the newly appointed members some schooling.
Excellent. Thank you. Just be sure to behave while you're in that. Okay. Alderman Alt.
No, sir.
Alderman Lombardi.
Well, beautification. Our cleanup day was postponed this past Saturday because of previously planned city events. This month starts the organizing of Christmas decorations, checking all the sailboat wreaths for lights, and setting up trees, and the Whittler's Bench Christmas tree is going up this month. It's a busy, busy month for us. So if you feel that you want to help, we'll be meeting this Saturday at the jail annex on Red Street. 9 o'clock.
All right.
Okay.
Alderman Mosteller.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to the Parks and Recreation Committee, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, along with our project consultant, Dr. Herstein, reviewed the draft of the proposed 2023-2028 Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan this past Tuesday. The advisory board approved the updated master plan and asked that it be forwarded to the Board of Aldermen for consideration at the January meeting. Until then, the master plan will be available for review on the city website. So be sure to look for that and review that. If you have any questions, you can certainly contact our Parks and Recs department. The Parks and Recreation Department has some exciting news. Say amen, brothers and sisters. Southport CAMA grant application, the Southport CAMA grant application to build a kayak launch at the end of West West has been approved. Woo-hoo! This will be an important recreational community asset. Please stay tuned for more details, but this is really exciting. And then, as a reminder, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board's regular meeting is scheduled each month on the second Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. at the Indian Trail Meeting Hall. The public is always invited to attend. Also, just as a reminder, the regular planning board meeting is next Thursday, next Thursday in this room at 6 p.m. here at the community building. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And a brief report on the ABC board. They met yesterday. They covered a variety of issues, lighting in front of the store, the holiday closure. They won't be closed too long, but they will recognize the holiday. They said they will be open Christmas Eve until 6. They've done very well this past fiscal year. They distributed $621,000 to the city from that store. It is the for a single store in Brunswick County, it's the highest. It's the busiest store. So be very proud of that also. So anyway, they're doing well. They're continuing to meet, and they're doing some landscaping also. They talked about that as well at their meeting. So there's the ABC report, and again, I'm grateful that Mr. Davis has been reappointed. We need African American representation on our boards, and I'm so proud of him as a veteran and as a Southport native, and the work that whole board does. Very proud of them. Mayor's comments, I will be brief. November 25th, Friday, Mayor's Downtown Tree Lighting Ceremony, Waterfront Park, 6 p.m. November 26th, Saturday, Small Business Saturday. So shop local, visit our wonderful stores. Candy canes are available for sale at Fort Johnston Visitor Center, November 1st through the 22nd. This is the Southport Garden Club presents Candy Cane Garden. So this will be at Keziah Park on December 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. And the candy canes will be out from December 6th through the 10th. So go down there, purchase your candy cane, decorate it, and bring it down to the park. Again, just very briefly, Southport Wooden Boat Show. What a great event! Thanks to Gene and Robert Potter and the late Bert Feldman for starting this 13 years ago. Just a fantastic event, and it captures our historic character. Take your best shot. It's never too late to get immunized, whether it's for COVID, flu, pneumonia, so ask your doctor, but take your best shot. Stay safe during the storm. The city's prepared. Want you to be prepared. Happy Thanksgiving. Many blessings to you, your family, and your friends. Staff reports are in your agenda packet. Item N, board comments. Alderman Allen.
None tonight, thank you.
Alderman Carroll.
None.
Alderman Alt.
A topic was brought up today that we've been talking about for some time, and I'm wondering if the staff could look at potentially starting a feasibility study on spacing needs for the city, so that we have one complete spot where we look at for all of those needs. Right now, we have very limited space even to have a meeting with a couple of aldermen and the citizens or anything. We have limited spots for that. And that's not counting the staffing, that we can't be putting people in closets. So we need to look that issue up, and I would request that the staff start thinking about that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Lombardi.
Yes, a welcome to our interim city manager. Thank you, sir. And I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I echo what Alderman Lombardi said. Welcome, Bonnie. We're glad you're here. And happy Thanksgiving to each and every one.
Thank you. I believe this was a marvelous meeting. blessings of Thanksgiving to all of you, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And a second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.